다소 닝가라 벤데 denjola Gaden Choda Temo Wedo Zedos Bande Zave Lama Rimbo 다소 닝가라 벤데 denjola Gaden Chembe Gon 장조 닝베 번 lembo masan jume shera baru manje manga namge ngobo sozo rangye yeje ju dezon yewe yum chanze lo dea ta gade para samgade bo deya ta gade para samgade bode so deya ta gade para samgade Gere Tongda Jaju Jewa Da Mede Nebe Jendan Dewa Temban Doje Bezon Sojo Ne Dashi Deja Tende Denle Jo Sa Shi Jo Let's take a moment and cultivate the highest form of motivation. We call it Bodhisattva motivation, or the altruistic motivation, seeking complete enlightenment for the benefit of all other sentient beings. And with that kind of at least contrived bodhicitta motivation, we should participate in this discourse. So now the outline has to do with the order of presentation, right? Yeah.
What the Karsa Longdon ne Tsikje Tangbu Tangbu Dajabananjis Tangbur Yiga Chimulo du Ju Patara Sanje Namji Dao Tomani Samato Kawa Medamba Shidam Jubata Sanje Jija Tomani Samato Kawa Medamba Trigis Medamba Lu Chidam Jubata Sanje Jija Tomani Samato Kawa Medamba Lu Chidam Juba Sui Shutemba Tombe Tonda. Tene Kamba Sum Jes, the Bunga Joji, Sui Shutemba Tang. Steve Young, Tene Kamba Sumji, the Bunga Joji, Sui.
King Shabbat Chichigmado.
Karşak tohum o da dinle direkt kaşı. Ta çöre bağlı düşünceden da kaza da yeva çöre bir tane yere dinle çöre bağlı. Tambo yedi de yine işe mı devam edecekti. Tele yaşayan da devam. Dinle sen başı. Dinle önce bir şey teniyor diye cübde zaman işe. Şu yapan şey sorular da zaman. Kale kale tohum buraya
So in terms of the order of discourses or teaching, Buddha, right, with regard to certain disciples or individuals, he taught as if, there is a self, right? Because he couldn't teach them right from the beginning selflessness. And then when we look within the Buddhist schools of thought or Siddhant, tenets, first he talked about things which now we refer to as Vaibhashika's tenet or philosophy. And then he taught Sautantika's philosophy or tenet, and then he taught about the higher schools of thought, which include Chittamatrins or mind-only school, and then the Madhyamikins or the middle way school. So the Buddha's teaching, in other words, is very organized and systematic, right? It's not like he taught in a random way, whatever came to mind. So there was a reason and rational, and that's the order of presentation. Right.
我这他抽动的题有关系，其实人家东西，给谁东西到可呀，东西没到那边，这个他把的好像他们的东西朋友就学习的是吧？
No.
这些的他第一个抽动之用是，他第二呢，因上去学个别东西就电下来电下来这个嘛是是呢，
No, sir.
你就看懂的刚刚看懂电下要嘛是是，
No, sir.
那吃着别的。 老站着不是，他们也干干了，天也忙是吃个什么就，他们可也老在他老也要忙是吧？
No.
我经常也吃过，就是我第三家就听我吃过是。
No, sir. So remember, we said that a general statement or a contention is this, that whatever Buddha taught, his discourse or teaching either explicitly or directly reveal or talk about emptiness or selflessness, or implicitly or indirectly, right, talk about that. So that is the general contention or the statement we made. And why that matters is without realizing emptiness, shunyata or sunnata, one cannot attain nirvana or liberation from samsara, and one cannot attain complete enlightenment. So realizing emptiness is an essential path. Okay? So if that's the case, then somebody could have said, so that why didn't Buddha talk about emptiness only? Why he had to teach about too many other things, right? So if that's the only thing needed to it's essential for attaining nirvana enlightenment, so why didn't he just talk about that one thing? Yeah. Well, he couldn't have talked about that one thing because it's not easy to grasp and understand that concept or reality of emptiness. So he had to, lead us gradually towards understanding that reality or the concept. Just like as Geshe said, when we go to the school, right, first we learn about the alphabets, the basic foundation thing. Then we slowly build on top of that, and then we, advance into different classes, and we graduate. So like that, Buddha's teaching is presented in that, gradual process, right? He couldn't have talked about emptiness right from the beginning.
我这个现在大语法店的，可是大没法考呀，多少电话是吧？大俺的语法店，俺的语法店大语些吧，现在可是考着上的，现在当没得考上呀，这些，可是。 前几年干什么？等这年的挣的就是，这两个人在这里现在没是缺了没事，上些学考试送到那，这个他这边老他老说我学生也没事我说我这里。
So as Krishna said before that, under circumstances and in relation to certain beings, initially he taught as if there is a self, right? But even, giving that teaching as if there is a self is really to lead them to understand that there is no selflessness, right? If you understand, what the self means, then slowly, as your ability gets enhanced, then you can understand, well, there is no such self, right? So even talking about the self with regard to certain individuals is he way of preparing or leading them to understanding selflessness. As Geshe quoted these lines from his memory, which I happen to read in my memory too, so I could easily translate this. Whatever you have taught, you meaning Buddha, it has all to do with pratit samudpat or dependent arising. That too is for the sake of achieving state beyond suffering. Shijur means there's nothing you taught that is not meant for realizing that solitary peace. See? So when you remember those lines, it's very easy to translate. So that's why Buddha ultimately would like us to realize emptiness because that can liberate us from samsara, that can help us to attain enlightenment. But he had to prepare us gradually to realize that. So Geshe thought this example of how modern high school education is planned, right? Right from the beginning, you start with kindergarten or elementary school. Right from the beginning, the goal is to finish high school, right? That's the whole goal. But they have to prepare, very systematically. That's why we began with kindergarten, elementary school, then the middle school, then the high school. Of course, from the beginning, we know, right? We want our children to finish high school,
What things that the Karza? The children to what he that don't use that then so you don't use your song and rivers and take Rigmar said, Kaza lot some bonds, remarks with don't receive or you didn't have the hill that consequence. Love Joseph Karza, the bonds that were Gaga Des will I am. Take that keep it remote of the hill that.
Right. So when we talk about the sequential order of teaching or discourse or presentation, so we can use the modern education as an example there, right? Yes, your goal is to finish the high school or the college or the university level, but you have to lead slowly because you cannot teach all the courses one at the same time. So in the same way, Buddha's whole intention is for us to be able to realize emptiness because that's essential to achieve nirvana and enlightenment. But he knew that individuals have different mental dispositions and capacities, so he couldn't, right from the beginning, talk about emptiness straight away because that wouldn't fit into everybody's cognitive abilities.
The hands are here. How is she so them. She jab a solo member Tamundo. She saw J to there in la. Did I hit the case? I say. Captain said some was did the make it Namanam J. Naman Chimala. Jubitavi in there. Chima the Nama dollar, you did so. Xia Rang de Chupta, Moa Tenali, Oma Masi, Moa Nang Yara Range, Lola, the tiny Bonju, Sosu Shani, Tinu Melam, the K. Shore, Shege, Teleshembe, Umelam Yeva Bishedo. Ti per Jeva. Some Shena, you did the Jene, you jail at any, you see it in the Kenyan. They does it get tapu, dirty. Simana Gene, Simana Yen, Jebu Nugu, the Jete, Jusavon Gavali, Jeve, Tata Ponla. Duty, Jugdoso, Djibouti, Joué, Chedabon, Mala. Dot de Duzena, Kijik, Tata Ponching. There are Jun Sheba Member, Gejizo, Gejima, Junsas Jube, Chedab Letro and Dube, so. Tini. 동인네 제고스 데리다 세다 딱다버지다 버지베는 손음에 담보도서 담보 준제 남샤디 야보 마샤디 데미르 정심이어서 야서나 이제 정심이 데미르 동동 하고시 자 가사 데미르도 코시시 아니 준제 로마도 니콜베 저거로 세다 디 도야 타달 tambo gyure na sha ibe ta dema yeba te te ma ja cha de khala khala te zo chibe re ma zo chibe res o te da shirama da de do de ba ni te ya do de ba te juda ta ya ba se tambo shirama lo che de ya en do de ba chi de ya de sem za ba se en ba ha shi ya che ya res so this is
as Geshe read from the text, and particularly great Indian master Aryadeva in his 400 stanzas on the middle way called Chatukshedhak, Shijaba in Tibetan, stated very clearly what need to be taught first and then next. Sona mimba tangbodo means first it should be taught how to avoid or prevent or not to do non-meritorious actions or negative actions, right? And how to do the positive actions. In other words, as Geshe explained, first it's important to talk about the law of karmic actions and results, right? Positive actions produce positive results, negative actions produce negative results. If you don't understand this law of karmic action and started to talk about emptiness of true existence or intrinsic existence, then they might think that even karmas don't exist at all. So one could easily become a nihilist, right? You deny even the law of karma and functioning. So that would be a terrible mistake. So that's why first we have to talk about law of karma and action, and then slowly, as the capacity to understand gets better, then you slowly talk about other levels of realities, from the gross to the subtle, right? This is what we find in the Buddhist schools of thought. What is talked about in the Vaibhashika school of thought, Chedamava in Tibetan, right? Now, if you compare that to the Sautrantika, then this Vaibhashikas got more of a gross level of realities. Now the Sautrantikas got little like one up, so to speak, right? And that same way we look at the Chitta margins of Manjula school. So this is how we are able to kind of start off with the elementaries, the basics, and the gross realities, and then slowly go into the different dimensions or the depths of the realities, right? Yeah.
No teche karza no gumso umabana chen dono debe don tambar mebe tata bongin tanye diwe sheda bongese tal chuo shedo teda joda uma teda ke rara go longoro rara go look de tal chewa manayang Oma tenyu rigbe shiwetse simsamba menshi ki rangde teta takji ki ta jiriba jirile mande bar masi rangji ba taka ke chu kanda khan jona ya teta ke takdo tsene chu di dakshi chewarwa re tengne se teta tin jobe shir Tadung yuda tata chamo re magaba shedo wonja rangji batagi ni tinte rangsi ka na shidi tanya tu yuwa jo medapa goni tinte rangsi tanya tu yuwa shime teta na tenpa chaba rikpa tine ngojin Shetavi deme di shebe, shebe no omaba jode. Shetavi degdi dendrop, kakbe tongzui tede, tini denjong tang tongzui de, sun shetavi ki dengdi se. Tanyi bongzi semzambali, she chavi shero. Yi cher semzamba nala omaba she mujub la, rongjuba nala omaba she jode. Jurigde Juje Shen Mangos, Tetana Tatanze Che, Tenju Chamu, Tawani, Tenju Kona in the Songsos. Okay, that in the Dharma so Lulia, and then about yours. Dinner that dinner the Ronjiva to get wrong thing to a killing or us. Somebody did a killing was the Oma Shagman because it runs into the dinner radio or the Oma Ronjiva, the Oma was a symptom of Michelle Curry's and the Oma Ronjiva did somebody be Chow Tower. or Denver Javati Bukawi, though symptom of our child, Tishani, Umava Sharis. Or the mother, Tazu, the Tengu and the Hidden Maridishina. Ronjuba, Umava Shah, Gizet of the Denver, but she don't know, they don't mind, they know Charo. I said, the enjoy might be Chawa, the deal Oma Shan Shawi. The Charo yours, or this will burn this water. 가서 또배다 bazamina 심자배 또배다 bazam다 랑지 저니 시드샤고라 랑지배 또배다 bazamina 인 랑지 뭐라 샤그레시니 고아도 사바 따라 tenyono 이 고알린 거로 들려서 랑지로 또배다도 켈리고 말아 어디 주디들 심자배 랑지 저니 또배다서 이 켈리고라 랑지바가 또배다서 세 치어세 장야 말이지 도바다스는 도바도 거라다 뭐도 초코라 된잔 매우 샤도 세다 티는 지금 말이 초코라도 요구레스 어떻게 다다 된jo 가서 런주로 되고 말해 데메 빼들 되셔 유메 따는 빼디 야 요소다 그래서 유메 따는 사데 유메 따 계단 집에서 따 나와라 Tushidella in the Jordan Aja Chikshe. Demotage Milnaja, Ninka Somazona. And the usual Naja in the Demo Namajana, the ocean down Tongo is a matter. So then you got some good to us, dinner, and you couldn't win the ever share. We are part of Nizo. You knew where you were down. And the Tobe part, Louis Pashaman, Nizo. What it usually you are the Ninzo, you may pay the Yaku is. Ronjo, you may pay Gaways. Tenjo, they made Tabe drew Gaways. Tabe drew the little Tabajo of the Delia, Pique, you do the Kakatanga, Marasitan, Chicken is only designed to do the children, mother. You will pick Beba said, Konaya, Chageno Kage, Soya Mara. You met our said, you called Noya, you gave God this Mazuna, that's Shine going on tomorrow.
Some talk about Taksam, the Ranging to be shooting or something, but talk about
Taksam. The much the Taksam is your Ranging to is sorry.
Taksam to me again.
That means talk about that Gagake shows. The Taksam card.
So I have to double check with even one syllable make the whole difference to make sure that I heard that syllable. Otherwise, the things might change completely. So as Gisela explained that what's presented in the higher Buddhist schools of thought or tenets are, shall we say, much more refined way of understanding realities or more into the depth of that realities as compared to what is presented in the lower schools of thoughts or tenets. So now the whole explanation Geshe gave, it is somewhat related to this kind of a question. I suppose I don't know who asked that question, presumed one or something, that in the case of higher schools of thought, we have Chittamatrins, mind-only school of thought, and then we have Madhyamigans or middle way school. The middle way school has two sub-schools. One is called Sevatandiga Madhyamigan School, Umar Ranggyuba in Tibetan, and the other one, highest one, is the Prasangiga Madhyamika School, right, Umar Tinjuwan. So the question is, so why are the Savatandika schools called Madhyamika school or middle way school followers, and not the Chittamatrins or the mind-only school, right? Because they are also higher level school. What's the reason, So that's what Geshe is trying to explain here. Because what's presented in the Savatandika Madhyamika schools is much more refined understanding of reality as compared to even Chittamatrin or the mind-only school. Mind-only schools assert, that merely labeled, right? Merely labeled or imputation, mere labeling or imputation, talk about taksam, and intrinsic existence or true existence are not mutually exclusive. In other words, that something could be merely labeled, but that could also exist truly. Are you with me? So that's the Chittamatrin mindful school. Whereas Savatandika Madhyamika says that there is nothing that is merely labeled, right? There is no such thing as a merely labeled phenomenon, because phenomena exist from its own side. Are you with me? That is the Savatandika Madhyamika school. So that's a big difference, isn't it? And so to understand their different presentation of realities, they have their own preferred, let's say, first of all, let's stop there. So in order to understand Savatandika Madhyamika school's version or the perspective on reality, the preferred example they use is that of a magical illusion. Okay. So in the case of magical illusion, right, a magician, say, uses twigs and pebbles, and then blows some mantra onto the twigs and pebbles, and blows some mantra on the perceivers of the spectators, and as a result, these spectators see horses and elephants. Are you with me? And so this is a very good example they thought can represent their version of the reality, which is that you cannot simply create horses and elephants out of nothing. There has to be something. So the pebbles and the twigs, right, we need pebbles and twigs to create horses and elephants, isn't it? But then they have to blow the mantra on the pebbles and twigs, the objective conditions. They also have to bless the mantra on the subjective perception of the spectators. And because of this combination, now the spectators are able to enjoy or see horses and elephants. And then they believe there are real horses and elephants. You are with me? Hypothetically speaking, if maybe not even hypothetically, that if the magician bless only the twigs and pebbles, not the subjective perceptions and vice versa, they cannot perceive horses and elephants. In other words, Savatandika Madhyamika says that something exists from its own side and something is also labeled onto that. So it is a combination of that. Is that coming out clearly to you? Yeah. So things do not exist simply by labeling, because something has to exist from its own side. So it's a combination of things. Okay? Whereas Prasangika Madhyamikans, right, who belong to the same school of thought but highest level, they said that nothing exists from its own side. Everything is merely labeled. Okay? So the Savatandika Madhyamikans, so for them, nothing can exist as a mere label, whereas Prasangikas are saying that everything exists as mere labels or merely labeled. Talk about taksam in Tibetan. So the technical word merely is a very crucial thing. You just can't say label, right? It changes some other meaning. Merely label. And Prasangika Madhyamikans' preferred example is that of a coiled rope appearing as snake, right? So this has to fulfill certain conditions. So there is a dark corner, there is a coiled rope, right? And from a distance, so that coiled rope may appear as a snake, and somebody freaks out, right? Somebody doesn't like snake or can deal with snake, you mean? But actually, this whole experience is merely label. There is no snake from the side of the coiled rope. Are you with me? Under certain conditions, that whole thing, appeared as a snake, and that's basically to do with the mere labeling thing. So unlike the Seventh-day Madhyamikas, where you have to have twigs and pebbles, and they should be blessed by the mantra. Is that coming through? Okay, yeah.
Go to the Jal, so the Ungema Tiresi, so big, Lord Babu, quarter Shantideva, and charge until I chama give you Tonyo do Shuo Maris.
No, sir.
Purely in bed, get out of your Tonyo Sa, your yes. Did they call Hizu Yorwa?
No, sir.
Hizu, you would not hit over it. Cause up that pearl Judama, he never got yerty. Tanda purely and Judama, she was the Ganga Tenju is him, the Shirama is in the device is Yamara.
No, sir.
So got when you told you she thought to that, feel like Judashi Yosho, but they may have the Cotonio to sign the race.
So Geshe is chuckling over this. Some scholars said that in ancient India, right, when they taught Dharma or the philosophical discourses, they taught it according to the level of what called the listeners, level of understanding it. Right? Whatever they're able to understand it, so they teach that. So as their level improves, then they talk the next level. Yeah? This is what some scholars say. But in Tibet, they said, regardless of your abilities, like everybody claims to be Prasangika Madhyamikans, because that is the most famous one, and that is, right? And there seems to be some truth to that matter, because in Tibet, we have translated all these 4 schools of thought. We study all of them, Vaibhashika, Sautrantika, Chittamatra, right? But hardly you find any Tibetan say, well, I'm a Vaibhashika, okay? I'm Sautrantika. Almost everybody says, I am like a Madhyamikan or Prasangika Madhyamikans, So regardless of your abilities, we just kind of make this claim that I'm of the highest brand here in philosophy.
That Umegunzin doesn't share the Sheva. The Niba Umegunzin does the Sheva. Shukaya, Denver Trivi. You that Tanya de Maybe, the Sheda Ligber Kani. Demi Jumata Triva Shevi. Rangde, the Umavi Jogi. Oma bad ngoni me ma thonjix che dige shake na tani de che oma ke lembe na oma bada che kan ya de re ngoni yuza ya me ma na ngoni me ma wa he shao de tira so che ni ngunzi na tani de ra sin chuba Kelembe, Omawani, Ranjibe, Joshetam, Nina. Susum, Ramun Jibe, Tayanda, La Dene, Dingo Gobar, Shivena, Ranju, Chishadi, Ranju, the Ramada, Ramun Jiba, Tonjaba, Shibi, Sauce, or there's the Nazi Oma was. Ranji was Tenjo Nisha, in the Tusums and the Ramon, contact about the Ramon River killing there, Oma Della, Oma Ranji was cigarettes. That Ramon drove the other came in it, Oma Tenjo is, Oma Nazi drove TVs with that.
So now the next kind of outline is delving particularly into the middle way tenet or the philosophy. So as we said, Madhyam Marg is the middle way according to Sanskrit, and this school has 2 sub-schools, Savatandika Madhyamikas, Oma Rangkyuba in Tibetan, and Prasangika Madhyamikas or Oma Tenjurba. So the distinction between them, right, there are a lot of things, is that though, taking for granted they are a middle way philosopher, are those who accept that things exist in and of themselves intrinsically. So these are called Savatantrika Madhyamikans. And then who say that nothing exists in and of itself at all, right, middle way school, those are called Prasangika Madhyamikans.
What did the amount to teach her? What the Shella, you show that way she came and name is but you may tiny there, you that don't do a task. To study tiny the choice, what is that? You doesn't. You never you was you and that doesn't she was that.
No.
Don't do that, she don't do that, she's a lot of
No.
what you get the tongues in. That made that shit that good day, said tongues in. You will never thought she any shape at us in a job. Good day, does they go tongues in. That Tadang Tenzin music there. Tan de Mela, Tenzin the Hebe, so it that Tassit is a low you the score. Tenzin said, no, Lord was a lot the other that could low you the middle of this or that. Because the time is Tenzin, said that.
So in order to understand that which is the middle or the Madhyamaka or the center, one has to be free of the two extremes, tha, literally translating. So we use different terminologies to talk about them. Sometimes we say the extremes of existence and the extreme of non-existence, right? Or the extreme of eternalism, taktha, and the extreme of nihilism, cheda. Yeah. So the extreme of eternalism or existence, something doesn't exist, but we, believe that it exists, right? That kind of belief is called eternalism or the extreme of existence. The extreme of non-existence or nihilism is that something exists, but we deny its existence, right? That extreme is called nihilism. So that's what we call the underestimation, right? The extreme of non-existence, underestimation or denial, and nihilism are synonyms, isn't it? The extreme of existence, the eternalism, and fabrication are synonyms. That makes sense? So it's important for us to be able to understand these extremes. These extremes we call tha do not exist at all. Both extremes are non-existent. However, grasping at these extremes are existent. Are you with me? The extremes themselves are non-existent, but grasping at or belief in this existence are, do exist. Okay, so we have to understand the distinction there. Okay? Because these extremes are what sometimes we call shenyu, the referent objects, right, literally translating, and they don't exist at all. But we have the belief or the grasping at these referent objects, and they do exist.
Chua Kong Komba Churna Long Ness, Nyam Yevan Jury, Yankada Tadam, Tilton Tadum Kijeva, he Yumi Daji Soni Tahi Judy, Teda County Soya, Zimbabwe, Tawa Nibe Yang the Donia, Yang the Tui, Puan Jui, so. Then the council of Puan Jui near Daxi. Tedan Cheves, then you the Godani, some Omashi, Shade, Tiny Bambe, Gidabu, Ibishero, Tedaria, Gonzale, Wusung Yushaw, Tajiko, Mejan Taju, Taniso. Think you come about it. Chedi meba, dendi meba, demaiba, nawa meba, nambariba meba, ne meba de, usundine ome lam. Chenam sosor toba he sonde, demadrube soji, yudada, takda mineba la, tayi takda. La Mineba, Tanya de Yuzon Las, Namsha Tamshi Ruin, Meda the Cheddar Minebani, Ome Lam Impotem's, Tadikizada, Tasis young about that, Tongi Jewel, Diga Tasa, and the Shidder Shuna, and you got Zimbabwe Poas, Poyas. Joya, Jida been a tar long say, the young double, Chayan double, Charon, young long say, or what the Joshi, Zimbabwe, Joshia, what the nature and tassigaries, or things, the good of the Rondo Tassash, or the Indian shows.
So what Geshe already explained is the meaning of the term tha, which in English we translate as extremes here. So I don't think the explanation would fit perfectly in those words. But the example in the ordinary sense, the Tibetan word tha, it could also means precipice, right? You fall off the cliff, right? Then that's precipice or the pitfall. That's also called tha, right? If you fall off the cliff, well, that's going to hurt you, right? There's a problem there. And so in the same way, if we grasp at any of these extreme viewpoints, then we get hurt, right? Because then we fall into what called a more difficult condition, so to speak. So that's the meaning of, right? The word tha. Tha means the end, or the pitfall, or the precipice, or the falling off the cliff, right? That's the meaning there. Yes.
What is that tiny role in the Bazia? They consider that shit a carron to they consider Katanya de Mema. They much of my what did I killing the entire show? This is it.
No, sir. So the U means center or the middle is defined as that which is free of the extreme viewpoints, or those extremes, I should say, not say viewpoint, because viewpoints do exist. Those extremes. Be very careful with these words. And so the taktha, eternalism, is a fabrication, trodaba, exaggeration, right? Something that doesn't exist, but we fabricate that to exist. That's the what called the taktha or eternalism. And chetha, nihilism, is the denial or underestimation, right? Something exists, but we deny its existence. And so if we grasp at eternalism or nihilism, metaphorically speaking, then we fall, into the pitfalls or the precipice, and that's going to, hurt us. That's the meaning.
Because a lingde tiny number baby, Umatan, Udan driven, Umate, he songs. The lingde, Chidaranji were about. So we'll need the new ones, Korongo, they make the tiny Shago, this was a lingde, she can say. This are lingde and the 然后这是吧，开那个的，现在他人帮我谁开那个也是叫学进去。那这个是结果嘞，有的没学，你看他长得没长，这样太没的，其实你看他能帮呢，特别为了那个用没戏，就他人帮别，我们那把搞把没娘做没的，弄的我们的，他你这玩意儿干呢，这个只有点把中呢，点把说呢是。明年写为同一些，有没有说也他的车，而且欧美我都没得明白些，但呢，他的车我们人对了，电中的东西接下的，那种的，电信这样就看，真的当把你的写，真的电子然后的，你我们人的写的色彩里，这他那东西的电的大话的。我们人学的他那电中你一门给学啥也弄，学松散，他就我们大话学用，学看了电把这个上一留啥样没把它，听一来是，就这他们是下小班是，下小班，也别是，你说是个说的是，这边他们是这样的。我们到可能也起来，现在一般没色彩的，第一次他那我们到可能也把它，没把一的到我台湾，没把音乐，那边写没到什么，他那没弄写到日照来讲，看上风波嘛也，这点，这点。呈现宇宙的毁灭，毁灭掉了，现在是人们的把慢慢提，这就上一那一年，电把前面人们来，得把什么些，这把设计快，一些的些松手，这都呢。让在康萨，当风波自由的没完的，现在都在没完，同的，可是现在都在没完是长线版的，无挂版的，绝不把写了，现在因为他的，这边是，这没完呢，提起的，就是讲满面的时候，第一是，上些代把。前面的这个嘛，对吧？那么上么这第一呢，上一学前边的继续也没写完继续，写完我对他，这太你的车，我那手上个，这个我那对的了不还对的，那我们南方嘛学校嘛的是，我的南边其实人说的，其实我知道嘛，所以呢，他你看着能不教我是吧？江北子那写他弄。现在大弄的这些这个是吧？
对于看我们两天在台面开那个有时候我们把来了嘛，但我们来的差不多。
然后生意这么开那个这个是吧？我那是那个，我那对是那个的这个我说，为了那个的这个。就是个。
因为可能是罗了我们。
可能罗了也是是吧？
哦，对，So what Geshe explained is that from Prasangika school of thought, for example, great Indian master Baba Viveka, who is associated with Sevatandaka Madhyamika school, that's the middle way school. He is not free of the two extremes, although he himself might claim to be, right? I'm on the middle way path, but from Prasangika school of thought, because he still accepts intrinsic existence, right? So you don't qualify to be really in the middle. Okay? Geshe did not explain it, but there was that whole quotation from Arya Nagarjuna, which goes like, whatever is dependent arising, that is also emptiness, okay? And because it is merely imputed, and so what is merely imputed is regarded as the middle. Yeah, so that's Nagarjuna's lines there. So what Geshe said is that being in the middle, or the Madhyam Marg, the middle path, the middle way, is exclusive to the Buddhist schools of thought, or Buddhism. Because from Buddhist point of view, the non-Buddhists, again my footnote, the Hindus were thinking about mostly, right? Not every school of thought in the world. Counterparts, so they are not in the middle. You know, they have fallen into either of the two extremes. The example would be Vaisheshikas, not the Vaibhashikas, Vaisheshikas, Chedaba. So they have fallen into the extreme of eternalism, whereas Charvakas, the Yangpemba, they have fallen into the extreme of nihilism, right? So these other non-Buddhist schools, meaning these Hindu philosophies, from Buddhist point of view, have fallen into the extreme, and they are not in the middle. Yeah, yeah.
What is because Chu Kumbas or together, Sanje Konamaki, Nava Sanje will low mother, the tiny puppy or the Lambden Pato Yomaris.
No.
Go deep. Chiju, Shiba, Chiju, Shiva, Chiba was. Do you million day show? Demba Yavata, then remember you got in daily Tony. You mean me to Dema Mende? You mean me, you want me, remember. Mississippi said, Woman Jubaran Dele. Kong said, did you go much of a tea? Say, you want me, remember. Mississippi, Yedo, she has teaching to Diwali. Kong you ever my intended Major Shiva, Major Shiva Namji, Tida, you're the Meva, you're the email in the Kiva, Chunu, Tondaba, Eva Mene, teacher, Tondaba, Yevani, Meji Shada, Meji Shada, Shiva Tondaba, Yuji Drata, Tanya de Meji, Gueta, Nika Medi, Chunu Tondaba, Yeva, the Tanya de Nika, maybe Shiva Tonda. Here, Papa Lay, you mean me, Nika, me, Nika Dani, member me. Tashi number Joy, the Oma by Rigged, Zubali. You know, Geshe Gyeltsen, he saw the here. Teacher, you want me, you mean you got me, you mean you got my me, Shiva, double, take Consonant, Omega, Ton, Chun, Tondaba, Eva, my Chun, then never me. Church, you mean Nika, me. Church, you mean you got my Nika. You mean can't remember me. Here told him be. Jubala round it. Here told him, but Juba round really share those. Here, go me. Shiva Tabu, Ngubur Yam, Denver Modrum, Ngumia, Deva Modric, Tonda, Jacami, Tade Jami, Shiva Tabu, Deva Trivic, Tade, Meshiva, Denver Trivi, Tade, the Meshi, Cho Nikara, Gaza Jani, Shigova Yola, young, don't wish you. Midoshi, Mrs. Dembe Tombaya, Tondamba Majum, Dembe Midomba, Tonda Majabi, Tony, some about the Kapsia. Then, T. Judata, doing Jeraba, Chijuba, Jarde, she was a she, Regbamo and Sumayam, Shajundi, Sumeva was. Hotel Dolia, Tonga, Catania, you got my message was 60 bear, Kansas, Jordi, Jida, you got my message, you got my message, Garza. Queen Yigam, then by Yeva, my Meva, my delegate of Hamaris. The Mati says, and Yamara, you may say, and Tanya de Meva, my. The much of my soul, those judges, you mean you got my said, Yamaris.
So, as Sheshla explained, this is primarily based on what is stated in the auto commentary to supplement to the middle way. And so in the sutras, different expressions or phrases appear, and so those are often misinterpreted, and so that's the whole issue here. And sometimes you find a word that it is not existent, meaning actually it's not truly existent, isn't it? But instead of it's not existent or it doesn't exist at all, so that's misinterpretation, isn't it? And it is not non-existent, meaning that things are conventionally existent, that's the meaning, but then like misinterpretations happen, right? And so it sounds like that, well, people are saying that things are neither existent, nor non-existent, nor not non-existent, not existent. All these terminologies come up, and then everything gets muddled up, and misinterpretations happen, right? And in the process, you miss the whole point, the middle path. Okay? So that's why it's very important to understand the meaning of those phrases or the terms or the expressions, and what does it mean that it is not existent. It really means in that context, it is not truly existent, right? What does it mean that it is not non-existent? Means that it is conventionally existent. So it's important to have that kind of right interpretations.
Somle, Tamo Dodeva Gomo, Chirgabala, Ella Nigani, Deve P. Hezo Sum. De Oma Tenju, Chodaji, Rajimeva Shevala, Goma Naji, Medeji Zeve, Kapi. Then there Chetam Jina, Rangshin Trooper, Joba, Tang. Rangshin Trooper, Joba, Tang. Chindrashela Rangshin, Mevashi, Sergin, Shivala, Gazette, she gobi. The Gaza Muzi, he gobi. The Gaza Muzi shiver. The Gaza Muzi shiver shows. That dear Gada Titan Joda Ko, Zeva Kapsi was it. That's what they were telling you. Who they want with him take it. Chug with Nizu Juzu Gaza Timad in Shiva. Says that the Gaza did not do the Kadidu. Shama Kadidu, any Omega Kadidu, what did he use? What did it?
The Shiggins word again.
Oh, the Higgins word.
So, in regards to presenting the two truths, Tembanyi, of course, when we look among the even Buddhist schools of thought, Vaibhashikas, Sautrantikas, Siddhamatrins, and the Madhyamikans, there's a lot of disagreements, right? And looks like this whole, how should I say, nobody's agreeing with anybody else here, right? And they're refuting each other's standpoint somewhere there. So what is all that all about, right? At the bottom line, what is the big deal here? Well, a lot of that things has to do with how each school identify an object of negation or what is being negated or refuted. The Tibetan word called gakcha, right? Depending upon that identification or recognition, so we find different viewpoints, and then there are different disagreements, with what is identified in the let's say lower schools of thought as object of negation. The higher schools of thought said that's not good enough, kind of thing. That's not accurate, right? So this is how disagreements among the schools of thought, arise.
어디 가서 들이 가서 대벌 미도양 동담벌 저기 돈이 심사만 어떤 값소 뒤 줍다던 뒤에 지리 벌서 책주네 시고스 시 리바모난지 송바양 샤중상 매바고스 너들 지단다 가자 무지세야 제가 모르겠어 어디 무지야 계셔 모르겠어 그래서 제가 심사만 강가시고 샤중시야 뒤있어 다 엄마 뒤지 가자지 가서 뒤 조조가 저어보면서 숨바 뒤 조조 저어보면 손이 더뭐 너데가 소고만 제일 가발라서 니가라야 되베베 해서 숨데 엄마 텐조 저다니 라히메가 해봐라 뭐마나 이때 미래지데 가비 되는 들 됐dam지 라히지 줘봐다 진짜 라히메가 있을 세와이시 시바라 가자 세 희그 네 가자 무지 셔셔 어서 어디다 너데마다 엄마 벌써 비디오부터 가자 가지 뇌바로 가지 그니까 가지어서 어디 너데베 디레디오 심자베 디레디오 엄마 디레디오 해야돼 어디 가자 무지디 뭐셔서 디시 있어 왔다
다른 시기로 와게
시기로
Of course, the main focus of this whole text is to present the viewpoint of Madhyamikans, especially the Prasangika Madhyamikans, isn't it? But to be able to understand that viewpoint, these other Buddhist schools of thought are briefly talked about, and as Geshe said earlier, because in each schools of Buddhist thought, the way they have identified or recognized the object of negation differs, so it's very it's essential for us to understand the criteria by which an object of negation is identified, right? And if it's not identified accurately or precisely, then we have issues more with that, right? What's being refuted, it doesn't capture the whole, I should say, the whole concept of refutation there.
What did that do? There was so. No more, just got one like this. Gaja Guzi Guzudam. Gaja no Dordama. Tirasu dozi Gaja Guzi, Sheva was. Tambo Gaja Guzi good Gusin. Umetawa Namda Judy Kevala. Tigudis, Ume look, toned down the Jibbe Gaja. Chamu Guzin, but won't do good. Gaja Dindo. Yes, Tonzu Shao Mood Mason Gaza di Cabe Menga don't lose the Michelle Shifty. Then Gaza Pumbe Tonji Lola Shao Mood Mason Tea Tombe Pumegi Short Semi Yimiba Shino Tezayan Shung Der Tabe Mula Mariba Tea Women Zim Sheso. Then to that chubde takbe dendro tongji shawatan denzi ngozi matanji meshoke chubde lo majuro yur maju tamje las tamje la tokme ne jesu shukbe lenye ji denzi tang ti sume dendro tongji lo lekbar shashi gwesos Teta gaja guzi khoja gaja guzi masina gaja de kaya de namja da hik marba seda tele ya ta de timra ngomo tumu jirga waje tel ni gaja guzi da goju gaja chang dor de ba seda teno kheba wa da tambo gaja guzi de gaja guzi wa juze kare sena ome tawa namba ju keba la Tingundi ni gaja ngosi nguris. Gaja sinu ko pakaya dera te kaya di guma sinu ko ka me yume kese shaya marwa. O se di gaja ko dijes nguris ko chito ko cheme chomo kese mari. Koran ko yuze jo gaja shesi. Taba taso usen dijes yunta di ini gaja riwesi oti nguzi nguris. Oti
So what Geshe explained is this, that in order to be able to hold on to the middle way view or the standpoint, or to be able to understand it, what is essential is to accurately identify what's being negated or refuted, called gaksha, right? If we don't have a clear idea about what's being refuted, then we will not be able to understand the middle way that's been presented, isn't it? If we don't have the clear idea of what we're talking about, then we can't talk about whether it exists or it doesn't exist, right? Because we don't have the clear idea in the mind. So this is why identifying accurately or the gaksha, the object of negation or refutation, is a must in order to understand that such an object of refutation actually does not exist, isn't it? Because in order to establish the non-existence or the absence of something that doesn't exist, so even though that thing doesn't exist, hypothetically, should it exist, then it should exist this way, right? We have to have some clarity of idea, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't know that. So that's the essential point that's being mentioned there.
Oh, the depend with that is the benefit Puma you may get a share on
No, so.
Could Puma say how good and she the Puma you may get a share of Mara. Or then you got just you may share the Gaza Koran with said of Kadid Hamona and go Gaza you may share your Maris. We think of Kishibo in that area. Puma that you tiny guy makes it Puma how dress and the Cocoa your man.
So the example that Geshe uses to talk about why it is a must to accurately identify the object of negation is it's just like, say, if one has no idea about what a pumbaa, a vase is, let's say, right? Then, even if we say, well, a vase exists here, it doesn't exist here on this location, it has no meaning at all, right? What are we talking about, right? So we have to have this idea of what a vase means. And then if we know what it means and the label that goes with it, now we can talk about whether there is a vase in this particular location or there is no vase in this particular location, right? We can talk about absence of a vase in this location or the presence of a vase in this location, right? If we have no idea what a vase means, right, we don't know what it looks like, and we don't know what does vase mean, the whole label, then we really can't talk about that thing is here or not here, isn't it? So like that, in order to understand the non-existence or the absence or even possible existence of something, we have to have that clear idea about the object of negation. That's what we're talking about.
what is it? Karsa, Pumba Lord, the Shin was a Tangu Gaza Muzi, who you did the Karsa. She didn't assume this double good Mariba, Tea Women's Image, the did. Or the Gaza was using the shit. Then to that way, the enjoy to Shawatan. The Tenzin Dorjee was done in Mishoki. To the Lord Gilmer, the Tanzania US. Tanzania, Tommy just to be Lenji Denzita. This danger Tonjila, Tonjula, Livasha, Gosa, State, to that house, to the Judet, and the Yoko to say the big 7 to your ticket. Did you go see a paint of Maris? When the charge dollars of Ganga said, does it link his as your Ganga? What things did you tell in Hako? Yes, did you do your Hamona and the Gaza with this? Kundachi go use it, shave teeth on your pen of your Maris. Kundas did on Zindu Rakbat of Race Arrow water.
No, sir.
Yes, that I could hit over the cigar or the hit goes in this. This was that.
So relatedly, what is also essential is to be able to identify the object of negation from the point of view of innate grasping or perception, isn't it? Not from imputed perspective, or maybe if I'm allowed to say intellectual perspective, isn't it? Even if we are able to identify imputed sort of objects of negation, those are at a very gross level, isn't it? But that which appears to our innate conception, that exists in the mind streams of all sentient beings, right? The birds and the animals and the humans and all beings, we all have such an innate, grasping at that object, and that has to be identified, right? If we are not able to identify that, we just get stuck with identifying the imputed, like from different schools of thought or through some education perspective, right? But that's not good enough. Those are very gross level. Okay.
Oh, the Gaza, to the Gaza, liver and music, machine, Yana Gaza was the cap cherry. God, Mugo by Gavan, Gabakundegi, Tanton Jola. Yana Gaza was a cap shoes, God go. Gashik Jan Chamo, the market boy, Sama Ludes, Jodo guitar on Joey, Shero, so dear Daco Gaza, Yahweh Gumazina, and don't carry your senna. Chap Sena citizen Derek, God Sena, Tanya to Yomersan, Demba Meva, Tanya Mevani, Chibasha, and Tanya de Mevacado, or the Chap Shara. I devote to take the over the Rakwat, I think the Lucato, said, because the travel got to said this on the in the instrument. Gazebek said that Tata in Gusimuris. But Timasina and the carpet don't want to do anything like tiny carrots hard to raise with that.
So when it comes to identify the object of negation or refutation, gaksha in Tibetan, it really has to be precise and accurate. We cannot have a margin of error here, okay? And if we refute too much, okay, then we are not going to be able to, identify it. Refuting too much is that, for example, then we might even refute everything that exists altogether with it. So that is a nihilism, isn't it? Or that we are not refuting enough of it. We have refuted almost everything, but something is left, isn't it? There's a remnant of it. That's a problem again, you know. So really, precisely, accurately identifying the object of negation is very important, that we don't overdo it, don't refute too much, and don't refute enough is a problem. So this is why it is such a, how should I say, a crux of the matter, you know. We really have to be, with that. Otherwise, the emptiness we establish is not going to be the ultimate reality that we are talking about, right? It could be some partial emptiness of something, but it's not really on the mark, so to speak, right? Yeah.
Oh, there gaza las lamsi gaza dang rive gaza ni yevalis tangbone demi da biyela teni hijal yova ki de temenu simje tamje roundu joatam lam gombe ngewa thome di joishir ti gozu yang rounju la lar ke rung merung shive rung merung di shive cui ji goba inje hija de yo goba menos ribe gaza ya tanye di cui ribe gaza kanye der sheba menge dene tondon cui ji ribe gaza muje ba yena de kona ni la chenje lo jodo lo do Tenzin Dorjee Shiva Nyele, Tamboni Dindi Tavi, Shishara Yeva Tang. Iba Dentro Tavi, Shishara Mive, Gaza Nyele. Gaza se Zune, Shima Yinde, Lodo Shidar, Sumatar, Chuvala se, Ribe Neva Tona, Lodo Ni Ta Hin Kang Jang. 그래서 마도나 로도니 타칸 신가는 고민이다. 뒤송하다 이 마릭베 네바 뒤송하다라 리베 네바 손나 뒤치다 송아 메바 얘는 tel라데네 로도 그 사원요 총니 주니베 쉐로스 데다 가사세야 되지도 람지 가사라 아니 리베 가사 람지 가사세데가 Mazuki Numu to Society, Pangoya, you take the race or race. Tata de here because Rebecca said, Cochebash, you made that. Tell that in a movie about Simazana and Cogato Marichesa, Tata de the Gaza Zimbalota, T.U. Shin, they got the Gaza Carison. Lodi yu shenyu de kaya ta, lo denzi da ukora kaya marwa, denzi yu di indu muda, denzi yu di mewa ha kosa da ene ribe kaya shuwa rwa, yu di mewa ha mogo ene ku kaya yo marwa, kosa tanda kaya di, denzi yu di zenshu shi de kaya tiri mazu, denzi kora kaya di maris, denzi kora yu di rwa.
So when it comes to object of negation or refutation, gaksha in Tibetan, there are two kinds. Object of negation by path, lamji gaksha in Tibetan, object of negation by reasoning or analytical reasoning, analysis. So those are two different things. Object of negation by the path is something or something that exists actually. In other words, our grasping at true existence is the object of negation by the path. All the delusions we have are the objects of negation by the path, right? They do exist. Whereas the object of negation by reasoning and analysis, it doesn't exist and it shouldn't exist, right? If it were to exist, then there would be many logical fallacies and, right, it will be completely, how should I say, challenged by the valid reasonings. So here, when we talk about identifying the object of negation, we really refer to the later one, the object of negation that doesn't exist at all, the object of negation by reasoning. We are not talking about the object of negation by the path, because that exists. Yeah. And but the objects of negation by reasoning is what we call technically the referent object or shenyul in Tibetan, and it doesn't exist at all, right? But if it were to exist, then how should it exist, or how could it exist, right? We can only hypothesize it. And if should there be anything else, it exists that way. Let's say true existence, right? Is the object of negation by reasoning. But nothing exists truly. If something were to exist truly, how should it exist, right? And how could it exist? That's what we are trying to understand it. Once we know that, we have that clear idea, now we can use the analysis and reasoning, right, to be able to find out whether that referent object, right, is findable or not, with me? So this is what we are dealing with, right? If the object of the reference object is not there, then the grasping will slowly, right, it cannot exist, right, ultimately, eventually, I should say. Yeah. So we will stop there today, and we would like to welcome questions. First, I'll go to our Dharma friends in the cyberspace, and then we'll come back to the face-to-face Dharma friends here. Would you like to open the glass door? Yeah, thank you.
Both examples. Just one moment, hold on. Let me look at this question. Both examples. Oh, okay. So, thank you, Jim. It says here. This goes back to the examples of the sticks and the pebbles and the coiled rope.
Yeah.
So he says, I don't see the difference between the sticks and pebbles, the example of the sticks and the pebbles and the coiled rope.
Okay, so you just need a clarification.
Yes. And so both examples show a need for a basis of imputation for the imputation to be possible.
Can you bring the mic to?
Oh.
Yes.
Okay. Basically, how are they different? I guess that's the. Both are bases of imputations. Both examples show a need for a basis of imputation for the imputation to be possible. How are they different?
How are the examples different, you mean? Okay. Quand je suis de dire chacun, t'as-tu qui disons son tanda, on m'a rendu be lola ya ane kume roage, talang pesai de roage, kunanzo qui ta de katsumba de chigo la roage, dida and on m'a tendu be lola ya takta la tu na wa se jobage. Kunan chiwa shoy de ko pede niga loge ke kebara bo ke thong mo so sa niga loge ta 매버시 로와게 고 땡겨요 와서 저때 빼대니게 그 도다 개발을 가르 땡겨요 어디 세셔시난 거서 로와게
알레 디델레라오도 열다 그래서나 데려가다 인조서 도배다성다 이거 인조서 디메 빼야 그래서는 주마들라 디오실은 가자 인데 때문에 가자 디니마서는 디오실 당은 요마르와
라루와
그래서 제가 유용을送过他刚才他会就是的个说说去年他这对那么的比他这定的这个有些说个现在可以吗啦我看这个像데모 단계들이 출발해 자고 각각 거면 그러지 유미서 들이 톱트가 들이 나야지만 들이야 또 받아서 라마 이제 그 유의권에 수도 좀 외인서 어떻게 롱원 매와테 가제 총샤야 류디 유메 빼데 롱원 유에바 총치고다 롱원 유에바다 lö셔 인조고도 가자다 데모 그다 뉴셔는 가자 매일 가자 인소로 다들 줄지 가지 그 유메서 들어서 들어야 비즈니스가 가요 말아 this one
hello so so in the lecture Ningbo what's that 장애 lecture Ningbo again
라
렉션이 무슨 정의 렉션 물어봐.
정일이죠.
So in the eloquent explanation of Chang'e, that which is definitive, interpretable, these examples are very clearly described and presented. So Geshe said the two examples serve two different purposes. Okay? That's why they are different. Let's first go with the Sevatantrika Madhyamikan's preferred example of a magical illusion, right? Their standpoint is that, how do phenomena exist? They said something exists from its side and something is labeled, right? So it is like a combination of two things, isn't it? Things cannot exist completely from their side, right? Things cannot exist completely through labeling. So there has to be this kind of a joint venture kind of thing, right? So to explain that, so that example works very well, because a magician uses tricks and pebbles, right, and use mantra onto the tricks and pebbles, so that, right, and then also put mantra on the perceptions of spectators. And because the magician is the one who is mediating this role, right, doing two things on both sides, so this is why now the spectators are able to see horses and elephants, isn't it? If the magician only puts mantra on the perception, not on the pebbles, then there is not going to be horses and elephants per se, okay? Or vice versa. If the magician only put mantra on the tricks and pebbles, not on the spectators' perception, they are not going to see horses and elephants. So it's a combination thing, right? The magician is playing the mediating role kind of thing, the mediator here, okay? Are you with me? That's why Sevatantrika Madhyamika says things exist from its side, but also things are labeled from this side. Through this combination, joint effort, they exist, right? One of them is not enough to exist. So I hope that example is clear. Now the second example, where the Prasangika Madhyamikas use is preferred example, is a coiled rope that appears as a snake. You don't have to do anything, isn't it? Just randomly, you have mistaken a coiled rope as a snake because under certain conditions it just appears, right? With me? There's nothing from the side of the coiled rope. There is no snake or a little bit of snake or anything, right? You don't have to create a fake snake to appear as a snake. It's just a coiled rope, but randomly under certain conditions, you have a misperception of that as a snake. So it's all your label, and you're perceiving what you, right, label it as such. Are you with me? So that's the big difference, isn't it? So the Prasangika said, nothing exists from its own side, right? Everything exists through labeling. So in this particular case, you mislabel that as a snake, and you perceive a snake. So those two examples are very different purpose, and they serve different purpose. Do you have a traveling mic here? Yeah. Renee. Yeah.
But just to follow up on that question, the Svatantrikas would also, this example of the coil rope would work perfectly for Svatantrikas as well, right?
Say it again.
The example of the coil rope
Yes.
would work for us. They would also accept it, right?
Oh,
The Svatantrikas.
do they accept that?
Yeah,
okay.
because there is something
Okay.
existing from the sign of the snake.
Mm-hmm.
So the snake exists intrinsically
Uh-huh.
as a rope,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah,
so
I'll
so
check with
it's the maybe it's just a matter of emphasis, but
Yeah, we said, preferred their example.
it's just
is the
preferred,
magician.
yeah. But nevertheless, they would accept it as
Right.
well, right? Because it works for them as well.
Okay, I will check, right? Sure. Kurang lana ken ta tanda pena oma rangjo begi thakda de rawa ken
라
oma rangjo be cheba yemene thakda de chul ya ken jingyo yorwa ken de pedi oma rangjo bal shane pedi lega de cheto yo wasta ina
네, 네.
oma rangjo begi kurang je doba yobede ta jumakin sharwa
저도
ken
거기 빼는 다음에 주매 빼대 롱주보다 조식을
zo
해서
chema
뭐
de yunju tanda
맞아
thakda de
이거 롱주도 타자 주배 샤쇼 머스고 뭐
is a kwede thakde pedi lega cheto ko thakde ngene 주 여바지 랑주베 데 징고로 와게
아, 네,
다다다 거 내가 지가 알아봐
그래
You're right, yeah. For Tibetans, that example would work, but they prefer the magician one because that seems to explain their standpoint better, they think, right? Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Thank you. Would the Svatantrikas say that horses and elephants, in their preferred example, exist from their own side as pebbles and twigs and pebbles?
Say it again.
Would they say that horses and elephants exist from their own side as twigs and pebbles?
Okay, what does it mean, right?
No, would they say that? Is this an explanation? Because they say that things exist from their own side.
Right.
But we're seeing horses and elephants. So obviously there are no horses and elephants from their own side. Would they say that they exist from their own side as pebbles and twigs?
Okay.
Just like the snake exists from its own side as a coil rope.
Right. Sure.
Would that be?
Yeah.
Is this what the meaning of existing from their own side for them is?
Right. Tanda Rangjubegi, Quran Zugita, Mixegi, Jumakin Persharwage, Jumakin Talan, the Peshagi Sonda, that Talan the Kasata, Talan, you can win the Yusla Wage. You like the Yudi Tagi. Pigi dear what using roge, using the large of that you said the dinner so you're like you're like the Tonda Kanda was around when you're like Talan the Rango you're like Tonda.
My young you say Karzana. This is what it. Do you know my jana? Do you don't not over? Melgajan, do you don't not over Mara? What is it? You go to you using his old can you say? Using Langa, Milanga, Janinga Janin, Tanagoro. Tada do the Kaka go, Maricora. You miss a decision. You do use Kazakayama, got your tree, Lambda, do those chairs. My 2 years of Kago, pay young ass, pay young end. Roju, that you may pay this. Nagaris. Tell you talk about do the Nagaris.
No. Again, they were getting that. Ranju will yapin a division not Jabberwage. Not Jabsa, that division Manava said, division got a talanango, that Rangu now Tonda Tagarwage.
La.
Division ya, not Jabberwage, Maja, the Talanangawage. Then a division Nangioma, what Talanang they were the Rangu now Tonda Diro.
But this was division. No, Majana called Karsa, Milga, Joke, do you don't know what is it? You did it. You say, you not in good.
The Quran lies and get the house because now Majan doesn't know you Marwage. Now Majan that division machine Nangi Marwage. In the Danga Jabzan, division is Sabla, Talanango, that I'm on that Honestly, that's I said. I think I'm saying the same thing, but Geshe is explaining differently, right? So, I mean, their standpoint is you're right. If the magician does not blow mantra onto the twigs and pebbles, that twigs and pebbles will appear as twigs and pebbles, right? Now, because they blow the mantra, now in place of twigs and pebbles, right, from that objective side, now the horses and elephants appear. That's called existing from its own side, yes. Yeah. So I'm actually you were thinking about, right? Yeah. That's what I was saying, but Geshe thought I was saying something else, right? He just explained. Yeah.
Thank you for your teaching, Geshe. And I would just ask, could you repeat what was the refutation related to the path?
Okay.
For me? Thank
you. Sure. King Tenzin Dorjee the Gaden Chena Shugin sa that agi ke lamgi gaksa shio wage. La. Lamgi gaksa shio wa. The young George Canaro na sa lamgi gaksa.
No gaksa that is ganzu nimu dosu deja kodo ganga ta kan jong ganga she khorta.
Lam kom je pang kwai tsu.
Lam ko je.
Yeah. So the object of negation by path means that all kinds of afflictive emotions or delusions we have, so we need to uproot them through cultivating paths. That's what we meant by object of negation by path. But in particular this context, it would be the grasping at true existence, right? That is the root delusion. So that exists actually. It's object of negation, but it exists. The only thing you can get rid of that is through cultivating the path that, right, uproots it. Yeah. Yes.
Follow up to the path. Sure. Does rightful view from the Eightfold Path play a part in this?
In this, right, sure. Tanda king chazan di lam ki gaksa sundu kan la da lam komne pa gi nyomo tu sung lab ro ge.
La.
lam ge gagza sundu kan la ya lam khom ne da pang kwai de sung
Oh,
wa ge
yeah.
chidu kan la tan da phaklam ya la ke nang ge wa ge yang da be ta wa yo ba
어제
wa di lam ge di ge kas wa da pe zhen shan de go ba sa da
오다다 빵에 되어도 하는 리워다.
right. Yeah, so that right view, yes, in the Eightfold Path is an example of, yeah, the path, right, yes. That can get rid of, right, its counterpart, delusion, right, yeah. Yeah.
Zen koan floated up.
Zen.
A Zen koan. If is the mountain there, if there's nobody there to see it?
Say it again.
Is Zen koan,
Oh.
is the mountain there if nobody's there to see it?
So what? So by using that koan example, what are you trying to? The point you're trying to make is
Dependent arising, emptiness.
okay. What does dependent arising mean? The object of integration or the things?
You figure that out on your side.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
I thought it fit in, you know, that
Sure, okay.
that unless there's an observer, there's no objects exist.
Okay.
About that?
The Quran like this that the church the 10 day rang sin ro sa jo wa ge.
라
Church the 10 day rang sin ro sa jo
Oh,
wa
yeah.
ge. Pena jig pena big the ka so ta der wa ge. Yu jin ta gen se me be ina ro wa ge. Ani big ka ta je yu de ro wa ge. Ko ne tu ko mar ba se ro wa ge. 10 be de wa so di de ma 10 day shi di shi ro wa sa ge. Ko ta gen se me na ta je yu de me sa ro wa ge. Di jig de ro wa ge.
레리
That's right, yeah. So you're right, dependent arising. Because there is a dependent relationship between the perceiver and what's being perceived, right? So without a perceiver, there cannot be, right, what's perceived. Right?
Maybe wasting your time. I was at Vajrapani 50 years ago.
Okay.
They said there's a snake by the kitchen, be careful. So I went up there, I had to get something. I went along the wall, I could see the snake by the door. And I slid along the wall like this. Went in, got something, came out, started back again, and then went, oh, it's just a rope. I couldn't believe it, okay?
Was it a rope?
It was a rope.
Oh! Correct, tumji shigor. Ko rope. Mangbur sinyal ya ngando ge chana do je choso yorwa.
알라
Chana do je konje da dewa sasa shema de chu shera yor lag do sa.
알레
Then ko nima je ngone su khore sa chu do sam shu she jo sa ro ge.
알레
야보 다야 시대 가는 게 탁발이 샤샤 그
알레
탁발이 줄에 민도사게
알레.
어떤 좀 쉬고. Yes.
So it's always been a curious thing about the magical illusion.
What?
So it's always been a curious thing about the magical illusion. Example.
Yes.
Okay, so I understand the example, but are you really saying that if there were a magician from India that were here, that was putting the mantra on the sticks and the pebbles, that we would all see horses and elephants?
Yeah, that I can qualify. Yes. When I was going to have a child, I saw this many magics, right? They can just make the whole dove and everything in front of your eyes, right? There's nothing there, but yeah, illusion. And those are even not a really famous magician. It's just like a street to just, you know, people even don't care about them that much because they have to make some living. So we just give few pesos and they do it, yeah.
Can Geshe explain how that works? I mean,
that's what Geshe said. They have that right mantra, whatever they accomplish, so they blow it onto whatever things they're using, and then on our the perception, then we see whatever they create, a bird or an elephant or a horse or whatever they create. Yeah, we see it. No, I saw it many times actually. Yeah.
So it's kind of
It's
impressive.
Gyuma keng gyume pe derwage dinde kawa yoresa dinde ki jagal yorbasa dinde ngapu kal sira thong yong lai bage anje jodu singe mbo yorwage dinde duwage ti kandes lega chigo lega chita keng lab songa la ko pege zel nga yang anje mil nga je de ani chu thongo re tu thongo re kan thongo doge dagar bage right, that's right. Keng gyuma sinyo wa jagal
라
keng ki jagal jodu sinyo
알레 저들 저 통이 뭐
they didn't even go to
Really?
Yeah, Geshe said he saw many magics in India too, so I'm not alone.
I saw it too.
You did?
And old Sadhiji
Yeah.
gave me a piece of string that looked like it had knots in it,
Yeah,
but there weren't.
yeah.
And I saw the knots,
Yeah.
but they weren't there.
Of course, I didn't see anybody creating horses and elephants. Okay, I saw a lot of birds and these other things, which is the same, right? If they can create a bird, why not an elephant? I have no other reason. Yeah.
Well, in Western magic shows, there are tricks.
Right.
But you could say that the mantra is a trick, but anyway,
right.
I'm curious about the mantra.
I think it's the power of
what mantra are they using?
Oh. Well, I don't want to undermine them. There's so many silly mantras like that, honestly. Probably if we learn it, maybe we can do it too. But I don't know, it's worth time with that. Yeah. Those doesn't require a big retreat or many months,
So it's like a magic show here.
Yeah. That's all they can yeah, this is nothing to do so much of a talent, it's just the power of the mantra, right? Yeah, so that's the power of the mantra. They can do those things. Yeah. Yeah, anybody can see. Yeah. No. The magicians. No, not anyone. I can do it, right? Well, then I could have made a lot of money then, but no. The one who whatever practice they did for the mantra, they can do it. Not everybody. Yeah. But then we all become magicians, Yeah. Well, next time go to India, right? So watch out. I'm sure that's still there. Yeah. Yeah, they may not make horses and elephants, but they will make all other stuff. Yeah. I didn't do it. Okay, so we will, I think, stop there because we have announcement and to be continued. I don't want our bones to be cracked too much here, so we need a little space. Yeah. Geshe-la.
So no specific prayer requests today. However, just a reminder about the availability of our Monday meditation sessions and then Wednesday classes on Zoom. These are new. The accessibility online is a new feature for both days. So please keep that in mind. If you'd like to join, everyone is welcome. And the Zoom link is available on our website, on the event pages.
Yeah. Thank you, Geshe-la. We're on page 3. Lodun Gyeltsen, Yudun, Begadin, Gesam Pongwe, Chudun, Minba, Denba Zingla, Tanyan Shogun Chala, Sowan, page 5. Mawan Dame, Gungan Dongan, Kanri Jonso, Ninda, Seze, Jamgun Gyawa, Niva, Yapse, Danson, Tenzin, Bawe, Shiba, Tenzin Chebe, Kinguan Zebe, Sheje, Nigun Changju, Tendu, Longda, Tamje, Bebe, Benyue, Deja Gyaltsen, Gundo, Shabden, Tuesan, Guanda, Cheze, Zombe, Yongzo, Yure, Tobe, Nyagi, Longri, Tejen, Nubu, Bedenba, Tobden, Kanri, Takbo, Shabden, Dona, Kongmen, Zeba, Namda, Tendan, Rowe, Pende, Jongwe, Kendo, Jumi, Chebe, Chenle, Kesan, Duje, Dendo, Shabden, Jizhen, Lame, Toge, Melamda, Kesan, Duje, Tendan, Zame, Shosong, Todo, Chido, Don, Membe, Dungu, Lundu, Sho, page 9. Raja Shinge, Gombo, Seba, Me, Zodo, Namje, Geyun, Droma, Sho, Sojo, Zeye, Lazo, Tamje, Tade, Mishi, Choge, Wodozu, Tubden, Jidan, Losan, Jawa, Shiru, Denban, Zimbe, Beyunje, Tade, Dije, Gyongwe, Shinye, Yangde, Ninje, Wongbo, Sowa, Jiden, Sungwe, Chana, Beme, Denbe, Zawa, Soso, Tawa, Namda, Sudi, Yangda, Langba, Losan, Genden, Bedo, Shabde, Tuju, Gyaltsen, Nonzin, Yangbe, Samjo, Namje, Zangzin, Junbe, Gongju, Shila, Songju, Rebe, Denbe, Ngata, Chenbo, Shabde, Chebe, Dongan, Kowan, Bojo, Zunbe, Rila, Sivu, Bumda, Zunbe, Dunden, Leshin. Kedo, Xinyin, Chenbo, Shabden, Sho, Kebe, Langdo, Gushe, Zeda, Zhenbe Tara Niezo Rangsa Chi, Sangbun Dije Regun Yishe No, Sumden Xinyin Chenpo Shabde, Tesang Rolang Zhove Dende Ye, Menjong Dajue Zangme Sijin, Labjin Zidin Dende Beshe, Chenden Xinyin Chenpo Shabden Shu, Chuzun Yawa Seje Jinla, Tuden Damjin Songmen Chonang Je, Daja Lasang Da. 接到面边那个轮着说，常着生着人不去，马也把那也就也把娘把没把，光呢广东别把说东尼大话人不去，马也把那也就也把娘把没把。 光呢，广东别话说，沙西北京就是没多长，热让零7年的研发的商业行动没得为我，如果难大行，这把说抗日让为国为新工作，平当的话马律中为，现在是往电信家族。 下边谁的报道研究及一当古如热那曼德拉，你养大呀面叫我滚到养大拉玛当对面去也别拉老子，啥大人家原点拉着年多些强烈过把牛多肉。